My name is Neil Leach. I'm a professor at FIU. I'm also the director of the Doctor of Design program there. I'm originally from the UK, and I would say that I've had a kind of deterritorialized existence in the sense I've been moving around the world. I was brought up in Hong Kong and China and so on. And I've taught in many different countries. In the States, I've taught at Harvard, Columbia, Cornell, SciArc, USC, and so on. And back in Europe, I've taught at places like the Architectural Association and other famous schools. But also I'm quite, as I say, deterritorialized or nomadic in terms of the topics I've been working on. I started off the subject. I started off as a Latin translator. I translated Leon Battista Alberti's treatise on architecture, De Re Architectura, into English from Latin, and it came out as On the Art of Building in 10 books. That was after I left Cambridge. I did that right after that, after I graduated. And then I worked in an office for 3 or 4 years. I became a licensed architect. But then I moved into academia, which I think is really an area I'm much more happy. Initially, to become a Renaissance historian, I very quickly changed to a contemporary theorist because in those days, this is back in the 90s, the work of Jacques Derrida, Gilles Deleuze, Michel Foucault, and so on was really becoming very important, and that became my area. I then started picking up writing books and then picking up invitations to teach as a visiting professor in various places. First of all, in Columbia, I was invited by Bernard Schumi, who of course is the architect of the FIU School of Architecture. And then I worked at the AA, and I found myself, although I was talking about contemporary theory, about philosophy, I found myself in very radical progressive schools of architecture where they were using computation to really push ahead. So I then started to think about, how could I theorize that domain? And to be honest, to begin with, it was quite challenging. I mean, there's not much you can say from a theoretical perspective about a robotic arm. I mean, it does its thing, but how do you theorize it? But then AI came along. And of course, AI is fascinating from a theoretical perspective because it encompasses a whole series of concerns, including deeply philosophical issues like what is consciousness and so on. And now, of course, with neuroscience coming in, it's become a very hot area for debate. So my trajectory has been, in a sense, I've taught in many different countries, I've lived in many different countries, and I've worked on different sort of things. But I would claim there is something consistent in that, and that is trying to understand how the world operates, trying to understand how we think in terms of philosophy, and then more recently, trying to understand how AI operates and how we are going to be thinking differently in the future.